Hello, and what is going on, Internet? Welcome to another episode of Do As We Say, Not As They Did, your only podcast and video podcast. Yes, we're doing video too. Don't ask me why. I got into being a writer because I don't want to be on camera. We are the only podcast to cover the latest in dating disaster and relationship rhetoric and monogamy mishigas. With me,
Literally the
as
only
always,
dating podcast. The only
absolutely the only one. And in fact, we have a couple of things to say about comments we've been getting recently. But well, first, let me introduce myself. I am your host, Dr. Nerdlove, also known as Harris O'Malley. With me, as always, is my friend and co-host. They are a sex educator. They are a actual doctor, unlike me. They are the Princess Donut to my Carl, Dr. Liz Powell.
Hey, everybody. Great to be back here. And today we have a wonderful special guest. Harris, do you want to introduce our guest to everyone?
So our guest, Kristen, is one half of the duo that created the Non-Monogamy Card Game, a game all about answering questions to sort through your relationship boundaries, desires, how to make non-monogamy work for you in a way that is right for you and your partner or partners, created alongside their fellow psychotherapist and good friend Ayala.
So Kristen, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, just to address a couple of things that have come up in the comments recently, which I feel need to be
we're going to dive into that.
Yeah, no, just right off the top, it's going to be real quick. First of all,
everybody, Harris does have amazing hair.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to start with.
Thank you, everyone, for commenting on it.
There's nothing wrong with admiring my hair. I put a lot of effort into it. Honestly, my barber charges me double because they hate cutting it, even though I threaten every once in a while to just shave my head and do the full Statham. However, this is not dye. This is what happens when a ginger goes through their third instar. Once we hit the third instar, we're going to ascend to our final form, but that's where the weird colorations come in. That's why it's a little unnatural. This is all completely organic.
Have people been saying your hair is also... So to fill Kristen in, on one of our recent videos, we've gotten a lot of very hateful comments about like they're not going to take any advice from a blue-haired monster. And I'm like, my car is called Cookie Monster, but she's not the one giving us advice. So it's definitely been an interesting
They seem to get the wrong podcast because we're not Pick Me and the Man Hater. I don't know where this comes from.
They also think I'm a lesbian, which is hilarious. And I told that to the guy I was fucking 2 nights ago, and he thought it was very, very funny. So, you know... Just a great time to be on the internet.
Yeah, you've got a relationship history that occasionally dwarfs mine, and it's rather impressive and terrifying.
Like, believe me, men of the internet, I have fucked way more men than the number of women you even want to fuck. Believe me, I've had plenty of men in my life. I'm not a lesbian. Many lesbians would be insulted that you're saying I'm one of them. So thanks, I guess, for reinforcing my queerness. And also, thank you for your comments. Your comments help boost us in the algorithm. They get us in front of more people. Please keep it coming. I am here for all of those stupid comments you want to make, because they are just going to make us more popular and make sure more people get to see my face. So bring it on. Say all the stupid shit you want to say. I am here for it.
But seriously, this isn't dye. This is all real. It's actually kind of annoying because, you know, the rest of my hair is going white and this is just staying. It's life as a ginger. Anyway, so that aside, because we're not mad.
I'm actually not. I find it hilarious, honestly, because again, all they're doing is boosting our stats. So I'm good.
Oh, hate views are amazing. But we're not here to talk about that. Kristen, tell us a little bit about the origin story of the non-monogamy card game.
Wow. The non-monogamy card game genesis was an increasing number of texts and voice texts between my best friend and business partner, Isla Kalisher, seeking better questions for non-monogamous relationship counseling. So we started with a Google document. We're all about the better questions. And then we had dozens of better questions, and different monogamy-oriented, cis-het-normative kind of relationship card games started having a moment a couple of years ago. And Esther Perel had put a relationship card game out, and we had both been using that in our practice. And we're like, half of our couples and relationship clientele are non-monogamy oriented, and there's no game out there. So we decided to go for it and create something that we're very proud of. It's 150 relationship prompts that you need and want to have in the exploration, not just of non-monogamy, quite honestly, like that whole first 75 deck. It's very much a personal inventory reflection of, what are my relationship values and what do I have to offer? What do I envision? Right? We've been having a fabulous time with it. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be sent one of these decks to review and talk about, and had Kristen on my live Q&A, and I think it's a really great resource. I'm so glad that it exists. What are some of like the coolest ways you've seen people using it or heard about people using it?
Well, to be quite honest, it is quite the party game. So it's a portable little thing and it's really fun to take to parties or out in events. And, we initially did it as a personal reflection practice and then something that people who are practicing non-monogamy could use in their relationship check-ins. We have a lot of non-monogamous relationships where people don't get a lot of time together. And so one of the ways that people say they use it is they'll pull cards and they'll use it on their Discord channel or on a Google document and sort of have an ongoing discussion, unpacking some things, having a more reflective relational practice. And then that cuts down on the processing time when you actually get to have a date. So those are two ways that we're getting a lot of feedback. And then also different relationship coaches and different podcasters. Dr. Liz was an early adopter of our game. And yeah, we just love we'll get emails saying, hey, we brought it to our dating event. We brought it to our non-monogamy meetup. This is a regular part of our podcast. We pull cards. So it's thrilling, quite honestly.
And it's one that I find like another way of actually having some real input into how to set up and manage one's relationships, because as I have said before, if you get 5 poly people in a room, you're gonna get 6 poly opinions, and everyone's gonna be convinced everyone else is doing it wrong. But at the same time, it seems everyone who gets into polyamory tends to be diving in head first without having done even the slightest due diligence or research into what it might entail. And it's hard to say whether they're getting all of their ideas based off of old episodes of Sex and the City and the sequel, or like various other premium cable shows that kind of dip into the idea without ever really exploring it. Or someone decided they wanted to have sex with other people but didn't want to break up yet. Or
I think TikTok is a big part of it now. A lot of people get non-monogamy content on TikTok and they're like, I can do this. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, you can. And also moving into non-monogamy will show you all of the ways in which you had issues doing monogamy, because it's not a different skill set. It's just going to show all the flaws in your systems way faster.
Amplified.
Yeah, it's not a, get out of cheating free card. No. You're gonna be doing so much talking, so much exploration, so much boundary establishing and exploring and questioning. And you're also, depending on who you are, going to be dealing with a lot of questions of how do you explain to other people that you're not in fact cheating, that you are in fact allowed to be doing this, and that everybody involved is aware and consenting, presuming that they are, because there are ways people will do non-monogamy, including the classic don't ask, don't tell, which some people it might work, but it also strikes me as just being one very long invitation to stress.
Yeah, and I think, don't ask, don't tell. You run into issues of like, how far does that go? Like your partner's like, oh, what are you doing tonight? Are you supposed to be like, oh, I have plans? Or like, oh, I'm feeling sick. Like, how far does the not telling go? I think it gets real complicated to keep something hidden. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it can work for some folks. I think that the kindest read I can give is that don't ask, don't tell is just like parallel poly taken to its extreme. But I think in practice it falls apart real fast.
I think part of the problem is just that people have a hard time talking about it and conceiving of the idea that love and affection, or if they're just doing non-monogamy but not polyamory, that it's being with someone else doesn't take away from the relationship because it's not a zero-sum game. but also, especially, and Kristen, I'm sure you can speak more to this. A lot of the assumption that like, oh, I could never do non-monogamy, I'm too jealous. It's like that's not how non-monogamy works. It's not like there is this tribe of people who just magically don't feel jealousy. It happens to everybody. It's a human emotion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Dr. Marie Toon, if you don't know what is compersion, that's a fabulous research. It was her research project. She turned it into a book, and the book very beautifully outlines the and what I call the and universe, where we're riding sort of like the spectrum of emotion from feeling very generous and a lot of compersion, like joy and happiness. You can be so joyful for your meta that they met someone else, and you can just be so happy. And then they go, okay, I'll see you Thursday. And as they're walking out the door, you can contract just viciously into feelings of envy, right? And what I love about having conversations and bringing some of these fear stories out into the light of day is you realize that there is no place where all the cool kids are free from jealousy and
No.
stress and just everybody's having all this free love and having great conversations. No, it will turn you into a Jedi of self-awareness. It will, if you're not down to become the absolute like lover of emotional intelligence and scheduled conversations, and you're not interested in logistical management of multiple relationships and having if you're not interested in any of that, then this is not necessarily. And I say this with an air of caution because so many people end up in my practice or Isla's practice in the great crash and burn, right? We like leapt out there, really hurt ourselves or hurt a partner, and then we come to therapy and then go, oh my gosh, it was not easy at all. And yet we really do feel like this is a particular structure in this moment in time. And I would say, I'll put a pin in this because I want to talk about it more. Why do people want to do non-monogamy? Why are people doing polyamory? Is it because we know it's always been around? We know that it isn't just a 21st century US thing at all, right? And what is it about this moment in time that is drawing people ever more into polyamory? And I think we're desperately seeking for a safe home. That's what we're looking for. A
I
safe
think
home.
that's part of it. I think too that late stage capitalism has made it so financially impossible for the kinds of family structures that we're taught about the nuclear family, right? Growing up, my family was very solidly middle class. My mom stayed home with us. My dad worked for the phone company. He did not have some super high end, amazingly paying job, but we were able to live in our own home in a fairly nice neighborhood. We were able to have sports that we did, right? Like we did things. We could take a vacation every so often. We weren't broke all the time. I'm a psychologist working full time for a major health organization in a big city and barely scraping by, right? And so I think that there's this huge shift that has happened in terms of what is available to people. And if that structure is not going to work for you, it leaves you more open to questioning, like, are there other structures that would? I think with the collapse of the financial viability of that kind of structure, a lot of people are looking to other options.
Absolutely.
And personally, I think it's just a lot easier to get a D&D game running if everybody's, dating each other and you can actually schedule it that way.
This is why I can't date anymore, because I don't do D&D. I'm so glad it exists for everybody else. I'm so glad that you all have it. It's not my
Hear
thing.
me out. Hear me out.
Mm-hmm.
Vampire the Masquerade. Just saying.
Look, I hear you. The thing is, I love improvisational theater. I've done a ton of it. I've done Ren Fairs and Dickens Fair. I don't need dice with my acting. I want to like act, and then I want to play games with dice. I don't need both at the same time.
Okay,
just
so Amber, gotcha. No problem. Diceless. That's perfect. No, I'm kidding. That having been said, it is also interesting that it's really kind of taken off, especially first in the geek community. I'm only slightly joking when I say polyamory is the only way to get a reliable D&D team group going together. But much like BDSM and other, non-standard, non-traditional relationship models, it does seem like the geek community, and especially folks who are neurodivergent, are drawn more towards non-traditional relationship models, in part because sometimes they offer something that traditional relationships don't and make more sense that way. I know a lot of people who ultimately ended up in some form of non-monogamy, whether it be poly, just openness, monogamish, where it's occasional, all usually started from a position of, well, I don't know why all my relationships end the same way, either with them falling out of love or out of sexual attraction with their partners, or inevitably cheating, even though they don't necessarily want to betray anyone, which I realize is what everyone who's caught cheating says, but it's a general dawning realization that maybe the problem isn't them so much as they keep trying to force themselves into a model that doesn't fit them.
Yeah.
And recognizing that sometimes the issue isn't you so much as the rules you're trying to follow that don't work for you.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of neurodivergent people, there's probably some element of like stimulation seeking, that when your dopamine systems don't function properly, you seek out more stimulation. And so that leads to kink, that leads to non-monogamy, right? Where you have a greater degree of novelty, you have more excitement, more exploration. I think too that neurodivergent people are operating in a world not built for them. And so there's a lot in general of looking at things and being like, but why are things this way? That neurotypical people may not have as much of a reason to engage in because the world fits for them, right? I think that's probably part of it. And like those are also the people more drawn to like geeky things, right? You have more ADHDers and autists who are in geekdom. And I think that it makes a lot of sense, you know? It also means that you have to get real good with having a variety of neurospices in your polycule and figuring out how to navigate the varying access and understanding needs so that you're not always creating a ton of extra conflict because brains.
Yeah, it also does kind of remind me a little bit of the joke, what's the difference between non-monogamy and swingers?
What?
People who are non-monogamous don't actually have sex. They're just having a lot of meetings.
I mean, fair.
Yes.
Fair.
A lot of
Not personally me, but a lot of people, yes.
Yeah, and the joking but not joking, one of the things that does really, I think, speak to a lot of people with in terms of dealing with multiple relationships is the unspoken partner in every non-monogamous relationship, the shared Google Calendar. Because if there is ever a thing that is going to make you realize how bad you are at time management, it's trying to balance the relationship between multiple different people, possibly in a hierarchical or non-hierarchical situation, depending on your setup, and make sure that everybody feels like they're getting an appropriate amount of time, attention, care, and not feeling neglected. And whew, doctor, that is a balancing act.
Yeah. And thank you, Google. You're an evil megacorp now, but at least you brought us Google Calendar. And for that, we thank you. Yeah, no, I think it is. And like, it's not just balancing the multiple different people you're dating, it's balancing your own work and hobbies and self-care time with these other relationships. And I think most of us are not taught how to do that particularly well, even in a monogamous context, right? Monogamy culture tends to assume that any time that isn't other explicitly scheduled is for your partner. And I think a lot of that bleeds into the way that polyamorous people even approach dating of, if it's not specifically spoken for, it must be date time. And no, it can be you time, and you need that, and you should set some aside, please. Absolutely. Your therapists beg you.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Now,
right.
One thing I'm curious about, Kristen, what are some of the things that make for a good question for the when you were coming up with the non-monogamy game? What are the questions that seemed very obvious that needed to be answered for couples to sort of, or thruples or quadruples? We're going to need new terminology for some of these.
Don't use thruple, use triad. It already existed and it's better.
I mean, or hinge, or yeah. Anyway,
well, but that's different. That's a V. So, that's a V.
Yes,
like
so
that's
many
a V,
words.
not a triad. Different.
But like, in terms of like, what sort of questions were people not asking that they should be asking? What sort of like ones that seemed obvious to you all but clearly weren't because they kept coming up?
What do you actually have to offer?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not only emotionally, but literally logistically. What are we talking about here? If you are nesting with someone and you have 3 little kids and you have 2 dogs and a full-time job, you are going to be wildly differently available than a solo poly anarchist, right? And so being really clear up front, and I think it's pretty sexy to lead with what you have to offer rather than what you're looking for. Everybody's got a long list of what they want. And I think it's a better question to say, what do you actually have to offer? What are your relationship values? I don't care what kind of relationship you're practicing. I think it's more than important to say, these are my values. When Isla and I work with people, we say it starts with your values and then it moves into your availability and what sort of living agreements you're interested, capable, and willing to make with other people. I mean, there are so many questions about the weeds of things, you know, getting down into the minutia. And I think a really important question is, how do you intend to personally, how do you reflect on these things? Like, how do you process what's going on for you personally? What are your reflective practices? Do you go to therapy? Do you have a process art group you go to? Do you have a poly meetup you check in with? Like, how are you keeping yourself accountable and tracking your shit? And then secondly, how do you manage your relationships? So I'm looking for words like, I'm big on relationship check-ins, right? A living agreement. Isla and I love the concept of living agreement over boundaries or rules, which are very different things in our minds. But just sort of like, you know, for now, when you're just starting with someone, to say, like, let's have a conversation about what's working for this connection right now, knowing that that's going to evolve. So I think it's something people often do. They come in and they're like, well, this is me. And they don't want to put anything on it, right? Because we're in this alternative community. We want to be free. We want to have agency and all this kind of stuff. That's not the same. Yes, respect all that, and don't abandon communication. So again, an even better question is, I'd be paying attention to how they speak. You know, do they speak from their side of the street? Do they sound like they have some sort of handle on their own feelings? I'm really interested in how people fell down, or what did you learn from your last relationship, or what are you learning now that proves that people are growth minded and oriented and they're thinking about themselves. And there are a lot of people that don't want to have any of that because it doesn't feel super sexy. We were at the ASEC conference last spring, and somebody came up to the table and it was kind of like buzzing. All these therapists and clinicians and sex educators are just like, oh yes, conversations. And this person walked up and they went, picked up a card, picked up another card and went, yeah, no, thank you. And I said, you know, they said, well, what if you're the kind of person that doesn't like to process things, doesn't like to have these conversations? I said, well, that's good to know about yourself. And you should be able to have a conversation and say why. Why is that for you? Like, why is that your the way you're coming into this? Like, what's behind that? And so just at least saying yes, and here's why I don't like to have conversations about changing sheets or sharing details about my other relationships.
Well, that's going to cap the level of entwinement you're going to be able to have with almost anybody.
Yeah.
Because if you can't talk about things and process them, then you're not going to be able to repair conflict. You're not going to be able to talk about things that hurt you or receive things that other people were hurt by. Like, it's just going to necessarily cap the amount of intimacy you can engage in. I would love for people to say that up front, because boy, howdy, would that let me know to stay away from them. But like, you just can't have meaningfully close relationships with people if you aren't willing to talk about things. As humans, that's kind of the only way that we have for processing most of our stuff. We're a very language dominant species. You know, we can't just release some pheromones that tell our partner what we're feeling and what's going on. We have to words it because that's what we've got. And like, maybe you have some other way. Maybe you're like a great interpretive dance person. I don't know. But like, you have to have some way to communicate and to receive communication, because otherwise, like, are you actually relating? I think would be my question.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one
Exactly.
of the things that I think people do not anticipate when it comes to non-monogamy in all of its forms is that there needs to be a lot of communication. There needs to be a lot of communication in terms of expectations. There needs to be a lot of communication in terms of relationship style, in terms of like how much time you normally to spend with your partner, how much time you need to be spending by yourself, what sort of things you consider to be a priority for someone that you have a connection with, and what that connection looks like, and what kind of relationships you might be wanting to have outside of maybe your primary partner, if you're doing a hierarchical form, your nesting partner, if that's what's going on, or just being able to handle the complex and often ugly emotions that may come up during all of this. Because, like we said at the beginning, this is not just a community of people that have magically solved the problem of jealousy and envy or insecurity or having, complex feels about what's going on in a relationship. And you're also going to be dealing with situations that you may never have anticipated before, like a question that I've handled before of my partner has just gotten dumped by one of their people they were dating. How do I support them in this time? And that
Mhm.
can be a very difficult question to answer because if you've never had to handle it before, maybe you're dealing with some questions of your own, starting with, well, yeah, that person broke up with you, but I'm still here. Why is that not enough? And so you kind of have to be ready to handle that discussion. You have to be ready to answer that question for yourself and recognize that why am I not enough is not the right way of looking at it, because to a certain extent, nobody's going to be enough because one person can't be all things to another. Even though it's like you mentioned Esther Perel bringing a card game before, Esther has got that great saying of monogamy used to be one person ever, and now it's one person at a time. But it's still just a case of recognizing like one person cannot
It used to be one
fulfill.
person ever for women. It was never one person ever for men. That was never an expectation.
Thank you.
Fair,
Thank you.
absolutely fair.
Well, and what
But
you're speaking to really is like the cultural conditioning. Like,
yeah,
even if you are practicing, there's a lot of shame I'll see rise in people when they have complex emotional reactions to something that even they've even discussed with their partner,
Mhm.
right? And so making space for processing the feelings that rise, like there's a real, if you're going to do it well, if you're going to do it in a really healthy way, if you're really actually committed to loving more than one person, then you've got a pretty large capacity and that's a priority in your life. When people say, oh, I could never do it, they say I'm too jealous or I don't have the time or something like that. What they're really talking about is like, I cannot conceive of anything outside of that which I've been conditioned to believe. And yet here it is. I mean, I live in a place where there are many families, polyamorous households with children showing up at elementary school, multiple adults showing up for family events. It's happening all around us. People my age, I'm 58 years old, the like adorably beautiful evolution of some previously monogamous long-term marriages. It just breaks my heart to think that people who have built a life of 20 or 30 or more years and they've got homes and, they've created a whole estate together and they have beautiful memories, to see people have to get divorced because they're not sexually attracted to one another anymore or like and
Yeah.
lose off their money, it just is so heartbreaking to me. And when Isla or I see the people that have put the work in, the personal evolutionary work in, and then they can come with fresh eyes to that person that they love and say, hey, let's not throw this all away, and I kind of want to evolve in this direction. How are you feeling? There's nothing fucking cuter than seeing 50 something couple at their first sex party going like, go buddy,
Yes.
go,
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Anyone who's like, why are old people at sex parties? I'm like, why aren't more old people at sex parties? They should be. It's great. Have
Well,
fun. You don't stop
it's
having
also
sex
the
once you pass
whole
a
like
certain age.
one of the things that annoys me, and this is just a separate rant entirely, is the way that pop culture treats middle-aged and older people having active sex lives, and
Mm.
especially non-traditional, non-conventional sex lives as being weird, unusual, and a thing to point and laugh at really, really annoys me, because it's like, no, these people are having the time of their lives. They are keeping things interesting. This is a couple that is going to be together longer than almost everybody else in the PTA, who's sitting there just doing everything properly and following all the rules, and inside just seething with resentment of all of the things they're not allowed to do and why they have come to hate their partner, as opposed to two people who have been like, you know what? We got together because we wanted to have crazy wild adventures, and I see no reason why putting a ring on that should change things.
I agree.
Yeah.
Here, here.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, so many things to unpack, right? Like the ways that like fatphobia shows up in the way people talk about non-monogamy, the way that ableism shows up, ageism, racism, right? All of our cultural issues show up in the ways that we think and talk about non-monogamy, particularly the way that like mainstream culture thinks about and characterizes non-monogamy. I more than once have come across people in the internet or in my own practice who are like, I want to be non-monogamous, but I went to a party and there were so many fat people there. And I'm like, cool, looks like you need to expand your idea of what an attractive body is, because it seems like you have a real narrow window. And I think that the thing a lot of folks run into is that I think a lot of people come into non-monogamy thinking that like they don't have to change much, just the number of people. And I don't think that that works actually in the real world in the long term, right? Usually because the stuff that's not going to work in non-monogamy wasn't really going to work for you well in the real world anyway. But because when you are doing non-monogamy, you're not just changing how many people you're relating to, you have to examine and change a ton of the underlying assumptions you have about what a relationship is. What does it mean to feel special if you're not going to be the only? What does it mean to be committed if you're not going to be the only, right? There are some things for which you may be the only one, but there are going to be a lot of things for which you're not, that you have been told are the markers of what makes you special or committed or important. And you have to examine all of those assumptions and where they came from and whether you want to keep them. I think that it becomes really challenging for people because they don't want to have to rework their entire concept of a relationship. And yet they have to if they're going to be able to hack it very long. Because if you're not willing to examine those assumptions, you're going to keep running into stuff that's a huge problem.
And a lot of times you're also running into the issue of really running into the limits of what culture has taught us and how harmful it is. Because when you start hearing a lot of the people who really start getting harshing on polyamory and the concept of it, and it's just like, and it's usually from folks going like, well, it proves that you're not special to your partner. You're like, your wife doesn't care, because it's usually guys who are complaining about this.
Almost always, yes.
And it's just one of those moments where you realize, oh, wait, the problem you're having is that the idea that your wife could be with someone as well as you makes you feel like you're not special, like you haven't locked this down, and thus you are all that she could want, and that is a problem. And not realizing that this is a you problem, sir, because it's one of those. I was on the Breaking Mayberry podcast talking about Mad About You, and there was a line that stood out. It's like, this person worrying that your partner is going to find someone else because you're polyamorous. It's like, they already know other people are out there. They're not blind. Right. They're not stupid. They're not living in a convent. They know other people are out there, and they presumably chose you for a reason. You kind of have to be able to trust that they chose you for that reason, and not that they're with you because they have no other choice to be. If they have no other choice, they didn't really choose. Whereas someone who can be with other people and also be with you, and you can be able to accept that their attraction for other people doesn't take away from you, just as your attraction to other people doesn't take away from your attraction to them, doesn't take away from the specialness of what you have. Again, it's not for, I sound like everybody, if everybody would get over themselves, they would do this. It's like, no, it's not for everybody, but
no, it's not for everybody at all. Monogamy is a valid choice. You get to be monogamous, that's okay.
But the objections a lot of people have is more about this challenging what they've been told relationships are and what they're supposed to mean, and the hierarchy of society, because it also gets into, you mentioned like relationship anarchists. where that does, people mistake that because they think it means no rules. Everybody's just off doing their own thing, when what it really means is that no individual relationship type, whether it's friendship, family, romantic, sexual, is inherently superior to any of the others. And thus, you are able to conduct these relationships on an individual basis, and each of them has the meaning that they have, not one that's been pre-assigned by society. That threatens people, as does the idea, Liz, like you were saying, like I went to a poly party and it was a lot of like, you know, average people and fat people. And what does this mean? It's like, well, as it turns out, fat people fuck. As it turns out, there are a lot of folks that find
we're
fat
better
people
at
attractive. And so but the idea that folks that they think are not attractive, who should not be having as much sex with as many people, many of whom are also partnered with folks that are conventionally attractive, conventionally beautiful, and that really breaks some people's brains, leads to a lot of folks really getting deep in their feels and not necessarily knowing how to reconcile what they're seeing with what they've been told with how relationships work. And oh boy, do people have opinions, especially if someone wants to talk about their poly relationship at being anything other than a complete drama fest or completely perfect. I mean, the new Lindy West book has got so much discourse going about it.
Yeah, I haven't read the book yet, so I don't want to comment on it too much, but I feel very mixed from what I have heard about the book in terms of how that whole situation happened. I did really quickly want to come back to what you were talking about the feelings when like a relationship opens of I'm not the only person they're choosing. And the language that we use around that in a monogamy context is so clear in terms of where it's coming from. Lock it down, ball and chain, right? There's this control-centered language that reflects the kind of control mindset that we're taught about relationships, that within a romantic relationship, it is your partner's job to make you happy and you get to extract that from them. They are forced to perform that for you. And that it's this model of I feel insecure and unsafe, you change for me, rather than I feel insecure and unsafe and I have to examine that and figure out what I need around it, right? That there is this means of kind of like offloading responsibility for our challenging feelings onto someone else and exerting control over their behavior in order to stop those feelings, which I shorthand as like a structural solution to an emotional problem. But it is born in this culture of control and coercion that also underlies rape culture, underlies white supremacy, but that creates a whole lot of problems when you're trying to have multiple relationships, because if your partner is also dating other people, you are necessarily relinquishing certain amounts of control. And for many people, that feels to them like a very visceral loss when it's probably something they shouldn't have been holding in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's understandable because, especially when you're new to it, and even when you're not, your partner being with someone new can bring up a lot of feelings and a lot of worries.
100%.
But it's also worth remembering that everything that people say, it's like, well, you know, we've opened up our relationship and now my wife is with someone else or my husband is with someone else. And I'm worried that they're going to leave me. They're going to like this other person, or they're going to get so lost in the new relationship energy that I'm gonna get left behind. And okay, that is valid both in terms of your feelings are real and a thing that could happen. But there's also nothing about monogamy that is going to prevent that. Their monogamy is not a magic shield against your partner falling in love with someone else or falling out of love with you or leaving you for any reason whatsoever.
I'm sorry, I was told it was a Captain America shield and that it did prevent it forever. I feel grossly misled, Harris. How dare you take this from me? It's very deeply important to me that I can say monogamy like a magic spell, and all of a sudden I am protected forever from ever being betrayed or hurt.
I mean, yes, that works up to a certain point, but let's not forget that in Infinity War, Thanos basically decimated Cap's shield. So anyway.
How dare you? How dare you?
The nerd in my name is not for show.
I don't think either of us are nerds. What are you talking about, Harris? I don't know anything about the Marvel Universe. Nothing.
Went right over my head.
It's fine, Kristen. You're not our kind of nerd. You're a different kind of nerd, and that's totally valid. We still love you. So, okay, should we dive into some stuff and read some stuff?
Let us absolutely dive into them, because we have got a whole host of like discourse for you to weigh in on.
Maybe 3. All right. What do we want to start with?
I think let's Let's start with the issue of trying to date for within
Okay.
the poly community.
The
The
rant
rant
men
of men
versus
versus
women.
women.
Okay. Do you want to read this because you're a man? You're a
Sure.
designated man on the podcast.
All right, let me get the voice going. I just need to rant for a minute, but also hopefully this helps some people who are getting started and wondering about the different experiences for women versus men in E&M. Backstory. My partner, 31 female, and I, 34 male, opened 5 years ago on her side so she could explore her sexuality. 3 years ago, after seeing some of her good experiences and realizing how lonely I was getting, she encouraged me to open up on my side as well. Initially, she was only seeing women because I was insecure. After working therapy and stuff, I got to a place where I was okay with her seeing men. She hadn't taken me up on it yet. I've had 2 dates. One ended in a kiss. Girl crashed out on me the day after about her ex and ended things. Other, we just mutually didn't feel the spark. She's had several long-term relationships and multiple FWBs. Hasn't been easy, but I worked through it. Now, recently, she met this guy through a social event. They grabbed drinks. She told me about ahead of time. She was maybe sort of into him and might want to take me up on the offer of seeing another man if I was still okay with it and the other guy was interested. Fam, this guy shows up to drinks and she mentions me and he's like, oh, I thought this was a date. And she's like, well, I have a ring, kind of wanting to see if he was trying to cheat or what the deal is. And he just very casually like, well, there are a lot less traditional relationships now. I thought y'all might be poly. So, anyway, now they're moving forward with maybe dating, maybe not, but at least seeing where things go. Meanwhile, I've caught feelings for the occasional friend through rec volleyball at the gym, friend to my social circle, hell, even the cute girl I would bump into in the mailroom of my building and chat with. All of this to point out, I am not some social sudden, wondering why dating is so hard. And every single time when I've either directly or subtly tried to bring up E&M, my relationship status dating, I lose that friend because either it's awkward for me to have hit on them or because they think poly ethical non-monogamy is weird. Y'all, it's rough out here for guys. I need a good hug and a good cry.
So first of all, I want to thank you for doing a Bill Compton impression. As someone who recently rewatched True Blood, it touched my heart to hear his voice coming out of your mouth. Secondly, Kristen, what are your thoughts? Because I have so many.
Oh, well, if this is a straight man, it sounds like it's a straight relationship that opened up. Okay, so fun fact, patriarchy. I'm like, oh, patriarchy's just done a number, right? So if you're female bodied and if you're queer, you're kind of having some trust issues with straight men right now, i.e., motherless, i.e., I don't even get me started, right? And so dating right now, there's a big, you can really feel it. There's polarization happening left and right. People are freaked out. They're scared. They don't know who to trust. It's not all men, but which men? I think that cannot be understated. We're in the middle of rape culture being highlighted in a way that we've never felt it before. And so anyone that is at all awake, aware, and conscious and female bodied, if a straight man is hitting on you, you're fucking looking sideways. And so I think it's contextual a lot. And so my query to this person would be like, what are you doing to end rape culture, my friend? How is this an issue for you? Like, I'm sorry you're not getting laid. And also, I'm not sorry. It's, if you were queer and you wanted to suck a dick, it would probably be easier for you. But
you'd have a great time on Grindr. They'd be so ready for you, babe.
So ready for you. But if you're a straight guy right now, straight guys, I'm sorry, it's not your moment anymore. You're trying to hold on to it, but I'm sorry if that sounds harsh.
I mean, so my number one thing in reading this is like, bro, why are you trying to hit on monogamous girls? What are you doing? Right? You're just like talking to randos and expecting them to be down with you having a wife. Come on, buddy. That is a skill issue. You do not go for the people who are not in the culture.
Time out, though. I have to say, post-divorce, my rebound relationship was said guy. I had never heard of this. Super insecure. He's fucking hot. I just want to have some free sex. I just want some attention. And he drops in there about X number of weeks into fucking me, by the way.
No.
Amorous. Mm-hmm. And his thing happens to be insecure mothers of small children that have just been divorced or dumped, that have like no fucking self-esteem. So that is a thing out there. Like some of those guys, actually, I was one of them. I got reeled in. I did have a stint with one of those people. And then once I finally found a lover 2 years later, he was out. He was gone. He was not actually polyamorous at all. He just
hang on. I'm gonna be shocked.
He just had a thing
Okay, I'm over it.
for broke single moms of small children. So I mean, women can be, and not just women, I shouldn't make a blanket statement, but anybody can be so insecure and vulnerable that they could actually fall for that shit. But you gotta pitch that a million times to catch one little fish, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
No, I have to agree with Liz here.
Yeah. If you're in any kind of city where there's any kind of non-monogamy community, or you can get on an app that allows you to identify yourself as non-monogamous, stop hitting on monogamous people. Anyway, go on, Harris.
Well, I was going to say, the first problem is that, yes, he's just shotgunning this out here with no real attention as to who may or may not be receptive. And in fairness, it's not like monogamous people wear a sign or that poly people wear a sign. That having been said, the other problem, if you're going to be just randomly talking with people, you have to not be handling this like you're about to reveal a generational curse that Dracula inflicted upon your family hundreds of years ago. You have to be willing to be just like, it is just one more detail in the data cloud that is me, and not treat it like a big deal, because the instant you are hinting at it, the instant that you are trying to find a way of bringing it up, and you don't just casually mention, oh yeah, so my wife was with her boyfriend one day, then you're going to be setting a expectation that either you're single or you're up to some sketchy shit. But the other thing is that as much as I tell people dating apps are just Candy Crush now, where they're designed to frustrate you until you're willing to pay to be less frustrated, they are also a place where you can straight up say, here is who I am, here's what I'm up for, here's my situation. Who's into this? Are you into this? Are you proactively willing to sign up for this? Some of them, like Field, are straight up designed for people who are varying flavors of non-traditional relationships. There's also ones like #open. OkCupid has options. Hinge theoretically has options. It absolutely doesn't. It's the funniest damn thing I've ever seen, how bad that algorithm gets. But putting it out there and hanging your shingle, explicitly saying up front that you're not monogamous, makes it all easier. But
again, it doesn't have to be a big deal. You can just be like, oh, what are you up to this weekend? Oh, that sounds fun. Yeah, my wife has a date tonight with the guy she's seeing, so I was gonna just play some Dave the Diver and hang out, right? Like, simple, easy, straightforward. You brought up Field. One of the comments actually talks about some Field stuff. So the comment says, interestingly enough, when my partner, male, and I, female, linked our profiles on Field, the number of women interested in him went up, whereas the number of both men and women interested in me went noticeably down.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
Not at all.
Yeah, there are a whole lot of dudes who are, Kristen, like you were saying, they're poly in as much as poly for me, but not for thee. And they like the idea of being a one dick maximum in this relationship. And so it's a classic setup.
One of the comments I think nailed what I think this is about. I would think the women seeing his profile view it as like, oh, he's not cheating. But the people viewing her profile are like, oh, her husband is going to be too involved in some way. And that would exactly be my thought too. That like,
that's also a distinct possibility that they're not.
At least I know that he's not cheating, as she knows what's going on. But if I was trying to date her, I'd be like, yeah, what kind of shit is he pulling though? How much freedom are we actually going to have before this becomes a problem? And he gets jealous of my dills, because they are going to be bigger than his dick if you want that. I'm just saying, like.
Or is he going to be like sitting in the cuck chair watching? Or is it going to be like a case of, oh, we date, but we date together, and she only gets to hook up with people when there's something in it for me.
Yeah.
Which is another thing that comes up a lot with a lot of these poly relationships. And it does get into a truth that it is easier for men to find people who sleep with men. If you sleep with men, you're going to find lots of people who are going to take you up on it. If you sleep with women, and this is true across the gender spectrum, you're going to have a harder time not because of anything inherent biologically between male-bodied people and female-bodied people or testosterone versus estrogen,
No.
but just that there are risks that male-bodied people do not deal with that female-bodied people do, ranging from the ease of pregnancy to the ease of getting STDs to, well, basic safety.
And
There are
yeasties, like yeast infections are a
yeah,
big thing for a lot
there
of
are
people.
far fewer
BV.
men who are in physical danger from their partners than there are women who are in physical danger from their partners, and that's
Yes.
just a reality.
Yeah, and you know, the classic line, like, men are afraid women will laugh at them, women are afraid men will kill them. And like, I see this in here, right? Where he's like, oh, these women, they just get pissed at me. And I'm like, your wife on a dating app would be worrying about where she can meet this dude so that if he's physically violent, she can get out. Does he know where she lives, right? Like, it is a different set of mental calculus that you have to do if you're someone who is not a cisgender man. Like, trans and non-binary folks in particular also struggle a ton with these safety issues. Trans women have to be very, very cautious on these apps because transphobia is such a problem and so many people are looking for trans people to be terrible to. I think that like cis men have no idea what it is to just generally feel unsafe on the day-to-day in the world in a way that many cis men, some cis, like particularly white cis men, do not know that feeling in the same way that people of other genders and races do. And you know, I've had several past clients or patients who began transitioning either to being non-binary or to being women and came into therapy talking about like all of a sudden they feel so much less safe all the time. And I was like, yeah, that's just what it is. They're like, when am I going to start feeling safe? How do I get safe again? I'm like, well, you don't. That's just what it is to be in the world as someone that people don't read as a cis dude, especially a white cis dude. Like that's just what it is.
Yeah, no, I move through the world in a very, very different way than women do. And I am not a huge intimidating guy, but I have very rarely been a place where I feel unsafe just existing. And that is not true for people that I have dated. It is not true for my wife or people who've been women in my life. And that is a hard thing for folks to realize, because in some ways it gets back to what I was saying before about the rules of how society works. The idea that like, if you just follow the rules, then everything works out just fine. And if you're the person who wrote the rules and the rules were written for, maybe that's true. Everybody else, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I do have some sympathy for this dude in that it's tough to watch your partner having more opportunities than you do. And I gotta be honest, if you just start making friends in non-monogamy communities and you're not a complete and total asshole, you'll have plenty of people to date within like 6 months. You got to go in and be a person around people first. And as soon as people see that you're not creepy or gross or an asshole, you'll have lots of people to date. Because while those sound like very, very low standards, boy, is it hard to find people who meet them sometimes who are cis dudes.
And also, there are more people who might be open to dating a married guy under the right circumstances if you don't treat it like, first of all, like I said, you don't treat it like some disease or some sort of curse, but also you make it clear that, you know, transparency on the up and up. Want to ask my wife about it? That's all fine. People who like you, but were like, oh, it's a shame that you're married, might be more willing to go like, I'm willing to roll the dice on this if you can give them a good reason to trust you. But the reason why a lot of them are getting weirded out by the whole polyethical non-monogamy thing is that it sounds like he kind of sprung it on them in a way that did not feel organic or feel genuine, and probably made them feel like, oh, the only reason why you're talking to me is because you're trying to get laid. Yes. And that's not a great way to go about.
So time out. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So like there's kind of a distinction. There's opening up your straight marriage, and then there's being queer or young and single and coming into non-monogamy from like the get-go or pretty soon in your sort of relationship development. These are two very different communities. And when I see 45-year-old straight white guys hitting on the 21-year-old
Oh,
girl at the sex party, it for all intents and purposes, the energy is like, I want to fuck you, right? Like it definitely it feels very dick led, right? And so when I see married straight couples coming into relationship therapy that are have crashed and burned in the expression, and they are like, and yet we're going to try to see if we can make this work out. To be realistic, to be honest, you're not going to be fucking the 21-year-old any more than if you were a 45-year-old single guy. Like, get real with
and
what.
why do you want to? Like, why do you want to? Why?
Because because you've been fucking the same woman for 15 years and you're conditioned to think that this is what you want. And in the reality, if you got 3 kids at home and a mortgage and a dog and a full-time job, the best people for you to be fucking would be another straight non-monogamously playing couple, because they got the same constrictions with their time and availability, and they want that emotional safety. The things that can go super south with straight married couples opening is one of them gets a rocket lover that like flies all over the world and is like super free. That is so cliff leaping for the partner. And then often that monogamous elevator escalator happens, and now it feels like you're having an affair, and now you're leaving the relationship, and quite honestly a chunk of those end in divorce because they follow the feel. They're conditioned to escalate, and they can't imagine, and they did it so like violently and disrespectfully to their married partner that it just like blows up their marriage. It's very difficult to recover. So think about what you actually have to offer and why you're going into it and sort of leaving your partner behind when you've been in a straight marriage or like a gay normative marriage. You haven't been open in your gay marriage, even like that can very much destroy your marriage and say, oh yeah, and non-monogamy ruined it. No, your fucking husband ruined it or your wife ruined it. It wasn't the relationship structure, it was how you went about it. So thinking about what you actually have to offer and why you're doing it, and how do you keep the foundation of your nesting partner or your longtime married wife the mother of your children or the father of your kids. Like, I would never be cool. I would never give the bless to any couple that hadn't covered those bases and got it really clear of like, what are the parameters under which we're going to try this? And oftentimes people they way overshoot just because they're bored and they're itchy and they don't really want to get divorced, but they're kind of chicken shits and they don't really want to have the real conversation that needs to have it. So being mindful of actually who you're playing with matters a lot.
So there's another comment that I wanted to read. I love a quip someone shared on this sub a while back. Married guys looking for ethical non-monogamy dates are searching for a drink of clean water in a desert, whereas married women looking for an E&M date are searching for a drink of clean water in a swamp.
Yeah, that's true. And there's one right below it that I think also agrees, that I think applies as well. I think if society were kinder to women and accepted women being into sex / higher body count, I really hate that phrase.
I hate that fucking phrase so much.
Then you guys wouldn't be where you are. But society controls women. We shame them into submission and suppression so they won't sleep around. And then we're crushed when men can't get a date or a hand job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, for real.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as every time I hear someone complaining about women having high body counts, and after I get done rolling my eyes at the term, because if they aren't burying them in the backyard, that's not the right term, then like, well, congratulations, you're one of the reasons why women are choosing to be, stay home and watch TV instead of going out and dating you, because you're making it really unappealing. The idea that it leads to the most logical inconsistency I have ever imagined in my life of, Okay, so if you're saying that the more men that she slept with, the more it's degraded her, you're saying that sex with you is inherently degrading. And
Yes.
maybe that's a you problem, buddy. So, like, maybe just work on that instead.
Well,
And
and
I
I
think
want to go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I question too what kinds of women he's actually dating, because he talks about rec volleyball, the gym, friends of friends from the social circle, cute girl in the mailroom. Are you trying to meet up with women 5 to 10 years older than you? You'll probably have a lot more success. Are you trying to meet up with women who are not as conventionally attractive? You'd probably have a lot more success, right? My bet is that this is a dude who's only hitting on generally younger, conventionally attractive women, and then rolling out that he's already married. And for them, that is a really losing proposition because number one, how do they know that you're going to be okay with them seeing other people? Number two, how do they know that your wife's not just going to shut it down on a moment's notice? Number three, how do they know you're not just actually cheating? Number four, how do they know you're going to treat them with any respect, right? Like, when you are a dude approaching conventionally attractive younger women, you need to be able to talk about all of those kinds of things. And again, you are making it much harder on yourself by having such a narrow slice of the population you're willing to hook up with, right? The more you broaden your range, the more available options you're going to have.
I do wonder, though, how quickly these like flirtations are progressing. Because if to build on what you were saying in terms of answering all of these questions, if he is talking to people that he has known maybe for at most a couple of days or sees once every couple of weeks and has no real contact with them outside of that, there's no real basis for interaction or knowledge about them, so he is functionally moving very, very quickly in terms of trying to turn this from an acquaintance to a friendship, and from a friendship into would you like to enter a complicated sexual relationship with me?
Yeah.
And if he spent more time, because I have in the last several years been on a real tear of what I call date slow, of get to know people over time. Do not try to turn every interaction with someone you have just met into getting their number, getting a date, getting a relationship. Get to know them, let the connection build, find out if you even like them as a person, find out what makes them tick, let them get to know you so they feel comfortable with you. And if done over time, the likelihood of them possibly being interested in pursuing a relationship with you, non-monogamous or otherwise, goes up very significantly because they've gotten a chance to get to know you. You've gotten a chance to build some trust and possibly some attraction. Whereas if you have only known them for a span of days and then you drop the, yeah, I'm married, would you like to bang? You are asking them to make a very complicated and very decisive question based on very little information about someone they know next to nothing about.
And I think that like you're very onto something because it says here that when he brings up his relationship or dating or whatever, I lose that friend either because it's awkward for me to have hit on them or because they think poly or E&M is weird. And like, why are you hitting on them before you know if they're open to non-monogamy? Like I feel like I wonder too if this guy is one of those guys who anytime a woman is nice to him, he thinks they're flirting. I don't know. I feel like the hitting on goes so much farther than I would want to go with someone before they know that I'm non-monogamous, because like that's foundational to whether or not like I have dated long enough and enough different situations that I know that if someone is not into non-monogamy, there's no point in going any further. There's no point in doing any hitting on because it's going to go nowhere. So like, why are you hitting on them already, right? I'm just real confused about how this comes up.
Yeah, part of it is that there really is we have a dating culture. We have a series of narrative scripts that say, here's how you conduct yourself when you're trying to date, when you're single and you're monogamous. We've all grown up with it. It's like a fish with water, it's just all around us. We don't necessarily have anything like that for non-monogamy yet. So there is a lack of a cultural script, and trying to stick to the monogamous script when you're not monogamous creates a whole lot of roadblocks, like we were just saying. But again, like I said, I think people need to date slower in general and to like slow their roles in general, but especially when you're trying to invite someone into a complicated relationship. And non-monogamy is inherently complicated because even if it's just sex, you are still dealing with the emotions and sexual connections with multiple people that need to be balanced. And you can't do that you can do it carelessly, but people are going to get hurt. You can do it carelessly and people are going to get offended. And so I got a lot of sympathy for this guy, but it sounds like he's doing he sounds like the second most common complaint that men have in non-monogamy and trying to open up their relationships. And the first being that, their partner gets a smoking hot new partner that they thought they would never get, and they are left with nothing. And so it's like, I get it. It's harder. It's difficult because of society for men and women to hook up because of the way we have made it risky for women and femme-bodied people. That really sucks. Need to work on the culture. But beyond that, also a bit of a skill issue. Go where where people have preemptively signed up. That will make things a lot easier.
Anything else on this one, or do we want to move to the next one?
I think we have beaten this one to death with a stick. I think we can move on to the next one.
All right, what do we want to do for our second one?
Well, there's one that you brought, Liz, is How I'm Feeling Wrong from former Algae.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that I brought. There's also the Need Advice to Balance a Poly Relationship with Me as a Mono.
Ooh, that was also a good one.
That was a good one too.
You see this a lot more than you would think.
Oh,
yes. I can believe it. In fact, Kristen, which of those do you think would be a good one to go with?
Well, I actually like the second one because
balancing when poly with being a mono.
Yes, actually, yeah, because the first general thing I want to say is that in my experience, personally and professionally, non-monogamy is so much less about, it's very much about sex for some people, and also it is so not about the sex in the majority of the cases. It's about personal evolution. It's about expansive attitudes in relationship. It's about self-actualization. In our culture, people are looking for family, and they're looking for friends, and they're looking for activity partners, and they're looking for emotional support. And that is, in late stage capitalism right now, that is not happening. You cannot get that whole village 100 years ago. Now you're supposed to have it in one person. I have young parents in my practice who don't have any babysitters. They'll have a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's so common.
Because because the social media says everybody's going to fucking molest your child. So there's just a general idea that no one is safe. And so you have in the Bay Area, young families moving here from Ohio. They have no friends, no activity partners, no babysitters, nothing. And
no family, so no intergenerational folks built in.
Nope. And then if they happen to be people of color or they happen to be queer, it's like, oh my gosh. So too much pressure, right? And so one of the things I think that's so beautiful and inviting, if you can get your mind out of the sex pool, right? Thinking that it should be about fucking, it's all fucking motivated. It's not true at all. Having a more expansive mindset around just generally wanting to lift up this person that you love or people that you love. I always say to people, like, if you don't wake up and think, how can I lift up the people that I love today? It's like, why are you even in relationships if this doesn't turn you on? And so whether it's the developmental arc of sexuality between the different gendered bodies, right? Like women coming online in their 40s, maybe pushing 50, their husbands are like, they just want to fuck around with the radios in the garage. And you know what I'm saying? And so just being able to expand it even to have cuddle buddies or just someone that you can travel with. I know a lot of women are like, they just want to go to Europe for a couple of weeks. They want to do some workshops. Maybe they want to get into have a kink partner or a breathwork partner or, it doesn't necessarily have to be all around sex. And I have got beautiful examples in my practice of an expanding developmental arc for one that includes leaning into their sexuality as a non-binary person, or leaning into their queerness now as they're 40, and they've got this beautiful partner that's like, I don't have any desire to do any of that, and I love you so much. So it can totally 100% be absolutely okay with some people to be the non-practicing person who is now in a non-monogamous relationship
Sure.
when just one partner is working. And that can work. And then also there's the conversation of, you might be evolving away from one another, and no one should be drugged by their nose into a non-monogamous partnership and
Yeah.
need to stay.
So speaking of that, let's read from Poly Advice, posted one day ago from a since deleted account. Need advice to balance a poly relationship with me as a mono. How do I make a poly relationship work if I think I prefer monogamy? I need some out of the box weird ideas or new insights to help me cope and learn to live with this. I truly want him to be happy, but I want him too, and this is not what I signed up for. I can adjust though with some help from you all. Maybe some fellow autistic, touch specific people have some interesting ideas. This lifestyle is clearly best for him. He's happier and he feels better mentally, but how do I make this work for me too? I am a straight woman, 38, married to a man, 39, and our relationship started perfectly normal. Got married and everything. But my partner learned more about himself and felt safe to explore, and he rediscovered his bisexuality. I am proud of him and support him in this very much, but several years ago he started the conversation of wanting something sexually I could not give him. We tried toys. It's not my cup of tea, but I can make it work for him. Happy to give him that too. But it's not the same, and I can recognize that. He found a male friend he trusted and asked permission to explore his sexuality with the friend. This was completely out of my comfort zone, but after a long and hard discussion and setting boundaries, I agreed. It's been hard, but if it happens outside the house, at least I can pretend it does not happen. He stays safe, luckily, and still loves me. Bit by bit, though, like boiling water, his feeling regarding the male friend changed. He's in love with him now, too. Emphasis on the word too. That complicated things for me. My partner loves to cuddle with the friend. The friend is gay, and while a lovely man who's polite and decent, we're not each other's type, nor friend. I am not a person who loves to touch others or even sit close to other people. Honestly, the 1.5 meter lockdown rules were a blessing in disguise for me, lol. Except my husband, whose touch I crave. I don't like being jealous, but I do feel it, and I have no idea how to make this work somehow. Recently, the male friend got in between houses or jobs, and he moved in with us for a little bit. It's only been 2 months, and I am so sick and tired of all the cuddling and their friendship. I sound like a bitter hag, I know. I didn't, it done, I don't want to be a bitter old a-hole who gets jealous of her happy partner, but I do miss him. I miss cuddling together. I miss being the one and only one. I acknowledge that he is happier with two partners. I acknowledge that there are things I simply cannot give him. But somehow it also opens old hurts of me being a doormat and getting walked all over. Recently, I also got an autism diagnosis, and that of course explains and complicates things a bit. I don't like being near people. Sitting next to someone in a restaurant is already a bit much for me, let alone sharing a couch, and cuddling with my partner in the middle is way beyond my comfort. I try, of course, sometimes. He adores it, and seeing him happy makes me happy, but it's never something I would initiate. We've communicated. I've set boundaries, and he adheres to them. He genuinely loves me, and all in all, we have a truly wonderful relationship. But it is this aspect we fundamentally differ, and I need advice, and maybe also to vent a little. His male friend will live with us for a bit longer, but the house is small. I do get time to myself if I ask for it, and we check in with each other regularly. And no, I am not divorcing him. He is not cheating. He is a kind and lovely man who genuinely has more love to give. We've been married together for almost 20 years, and I am not giving up this easily.
Oh, honey.
I wish this could work for her. I just don't know that it can.
I hate to say this, but I don't think, under the best of circumstances, I don't think this relationship is going to last much longer on a number of reasons. Starting with the fact that she's looking for ways to, like, even the very first post says, points out that she says, but if it happens outside the house, at least I can pretend it doesn't happen.
Yeah, that was the part for me too. That I was
Yeah,
like,
that's the part where it just
"Blah."
goes, that's the big warning sign of this is happening. Pretending it's not happening is not going to help. But also, there's the fact that doesn't seem to be anything here for her. I get that her husband is a little Twitter pated, a little like E&M going on, a little thrill of the new with the boyfriend, but she's apparently not getting any of her emotional or physical needs met at all. And she's sitting there talking about how her husband is just constantly cuddling with his boyfriend, but never with her. And that's the warning sign. Like, there's no balance here. And that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like she is actually okay with doing polyamory, right? Her husband wants to be polyamorous. He wants to have an emotional, connected relationship with this man who he has now moved into their house, and she wants to pretend it doesn't exist. And the challenge here is that she's asking, like, how do I not feel these feelings? And I don't know that I don't know that that's possible, number one, and I don't know that that's the solution, number two. Like, these are valid feelings you're having. These feelings are telling you that there are things here that are not working for you and that are hurting you. And I think that, like, I just wonder for her, other than, like, it's been 20 years, like, what's actually keeping you here, right? Like, you say he genuinely loves you, he adheres to the boundaries you set. But it also sounds like, again, there's a lot happening that makes you deeply uncomfortable, which is not always a bad thing, but it doesn't sound like it's going to change, right? Like, it doesn't sound like this is something temporary that will pass. It sounds like this is him finding a structure that actually makes him very happy. And if what's making him happy is making you miserable, and what would make you happy would make him miserable, like, what are our options there? You know, realistically, is there a solution here where both of you feel happy about it? Because I don't think the answer is how much suffering can each of you endure to stick together.
Modern marriage. I think
Well,
part of the
and
problem.
Like,
Yeah,
Kristen.
sorry.
if there's one thing I say in relationship counseling, love doesn't have anything to do with it. She obviously very much loves him,
Mhm.
and it matters a lot to her that he's happy. She's obviously got some compersion going on. She's loving seeing him happy. In her logical autistic mind, it all makes sense, right? Like, why wouldn't we? Why would I not? If I love him, he wants this. Of course I'm going to give it to him. And so at what cost, right? And so love doesn't have anything to do with it, and compatibility changes over time. So you can
Mhm.
love someone and the most blessed thing is to let them go. Now, in this particular situation, if there was a move out date and they were all coming together to triad therapy, and those two, the meta and the husband, are like, we have to figure out how to make this work with her, and this is like, and she can identify, like, I like you in our home alone, don't want to live, I don't want to mess with anyone else. Number two, cuddling is extremely important to me. I need our time to be carved out and prioritized, and all of the other things that they've built over that 20 years still get the time, energy, and attention. It's okay if she doesn't want to have any other that's totally okay. If this choice does not end up meaning she gets totally sacrificed. She mentions she has a wound, and when, like, Isla and I made a series of posts about this. It isn't non-monogamy that's going to fuck you up and hurt you. It's whether or not you are aware of your wounding patterns and how they show up in your attachment and intimate partnership. Those are the things. It's not the structure, it's how you're showing up. So this guy could be doing a total number on her and being like, yeah, yeah, or it could be as lovely as this person says, like, no, we talk, I feel the commitment, I feel the care. Well, I would say then let's see it in action. Like, can they prioritize you and actually be a healthy hinge? That's no small thing. That's a very difficult thing.
And
Yeah.
I think I wonder too how honest she's being. about how these things are impacting her and what she wants and needs around it. Because, you know, the comment you said that she mentioned was like, it opens up old hurts of me being a doormat and getting walked all over. Right. And so I wonder, has she told him, when I always see you cuddling with this guy, it makes me feel like I can't get those cuddles from you. Is there a way we could figure out to make sure that I'm getting cuddles on the couch too, and not just him? And I know that's tough because you would love to be in the middle of both of us, but for me, that's deeply uncomfortable. So I need like some just us cuddles where he's not involved and he's sitting somewhere else, right? Like being more clear about those wants and needs, because I think she might be doing the thing that some folks do in these situations, which is like asking for the least thing that would make her not suffer so hard she can't possibly stay, rather than like being direct about what she actually needs so that you can find a way to get that met.
Absolutely.
And also, she says that like her boundaries, you know, they're establishing boundaries and those boundaries are being met, but what boundaries is she establishing? Because it sounds like one of the things, she's not getting any sort of like reciprocal affection out of this. And there was a line that she said that really kind of leapt out of me of like, you know, pot of boiling water. And it's just like, oh, that's not good. And someone in the comments points out that there has been a distinct progression of, you know, husband discovering his bisexuality. Great. Her trying to engage with him through toys. Okay, cool. It's not really working, but she's trying. He moves on to exploring it with another man. Okay, cool. She's down with that. She wants to see him happy. He ends up with someone. It goes from being just sex to being love.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Now he's moved in with them. This is a frog in a pot of boiling water, intentionally or otherwise, and I don't think she sees that. And or she does, but she hasn't fully processed what it means. And I think this relationship is progressing to the point that he's going to realize that maybe he may be bisexual, but he may be a little bit more on the sleeps with men side than the sleeps with women side. And
Or he may
she
be
has
diving into that
picked up.
because he was with a woman for a long time, right? Like sometimes when you haven't been on one side of that pendulum swing for a while, you swing extra hard for a minute to kind of make up for lost time and get those experiences in.
Yeah, but it doesn't sound like this, like it's gonna be swinging back the other way anytime soon, or in any way that's really working for her. And this, if she is trying to, the fact that she keeps saying cope, the fact that she keeps saying ignore or pretend, is really kind of like, I hate trying to analyze people based on word choice because it's, you know, people aren't always going to be using the best words. But that does kind of suggest to me that maybe she's trying to say, how can this not hurt? And that's not really what she should be looking for.
Or what do I need to do to maintain the connection? Right. So we're either withholding love or we're overperforming to keep the connection. Right. Like when we look at it through a parts lens, right? I always say that the managerial class of the parts are always like, you don't really want to change. What's like, let's like stay right here, like at least we know this, right? To contemplate actually saying, what do I actually want? When you had what you wanted, you were okay. She's not saying like we were having issues or we were both feeling restless. It was like his developmental arc started going like this and hers is doing some other thing, and now they feel like they're missing each other, and she's the one that has the wound of the doormatting thing. And if that's a attachment wounding, right? Fawning is nothing if it isn't like overperforming to keep a connection. It automatically assumes you need to change, right? So if nothing else, it's a wonderful opportunity for this person to like do a self-inventory about like, who am I at this point in my life? And is this something that I really want? And it cannot be understated that this often is how the conversation of non-monogamy starts, with a usually married straight couple. There's a too young, didn't really know who I was. And now here I am, and I am identifying now. I've got this new identity. And your wife or husband was like very satisfied with their normie life, and they were happy with sex 4 times a month, and what mattered most, that they were together on Saturday night watching a movie and going to soccer games with their kid. And now all of a sudden your partner's like, Well, guess what? I need something different. It's hard not to hear that and think you need something more than me. And so I have a lot of like compassion for this person, right? And
Yeah.
it can't be understated too, like neurodivergence, especially that, autism. I often find autistic clients trying to be logical about an emotional thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you can't logic away your feelings. I think that one of the ways that CBT is often taken to terrible unhealthy ends is when we're trying to like completely logic away all of our feelings. Our feelings are giving us important information. We can
Yes.
examine what they're telling us to do, we can examine where they're coming from, but sometimes your feeling is going to be there even if it's not logical. Even if you can come up with a whole list of reasons why you should be fine with your partner having another partner, if you just aren't, that also is valid, and that is an important piece of information you cannot ignore. Some people just are more monogamous than others. And it is not a lack of enlightenment. It is not a lack of examining things. Sometimes that just does not work for you.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
not the
okay.
patriarchy did a it's not the patriarchy did a whammy on you. It's not that, the monogamy industry has brainwashed you. It's how people are wired.
Well,
And
and even
that's
if it is, right? Like,
yeah.
even if it is that the monogamy industry has brainwashed you, if you are in a place where that brainwashing is still deeply rooted and you do not feel like you can shake it anytime soon, then choose fucking monogamy. That's okay.
Mhm.
I I see so many times these people trying so hard to be non-monogamous when it is hurting them. And like at the start of this she says this lifestyle is clearly best for him. He's happier and he feels better mentally. But how to make this work for me too, right? And later on she says I hate it. Like I hate it. And if he
That's
loves it and is better and you hate it and are miserable, maybe there's nothing wrong with what you're doing. Maybe you just don't fit. And like, can we be okay with that? Can we, she says like he's not cheating. He's a kind and lovely man. That does not mean you are a good fit for each other at this phase in your lives.
Yep.
You two started when you were like in your late teens. That is you were completely different people than you are now. You've probably been 3 or 4 completely different people in the almost 20 years you've been together. Those previous versions of you worked well together, but maybe these versions of you don't. And that's
Mm.
not a statement on you. You are not a failure if you cannot get okay with it. It's not a statement on him. He's not a terrible, evil person for wanting non monogamy, right? It just may mean that the two of you do not fit with each other at this phase in your lives. And like, can
Yeah.
we just find a way to be okay with that?
Yeah, that part is hard too because it's again a thing that we are taught that if love is right and you love your partner, you will love them exactly that way or more so through all your life. And what we are not told is that not every love story is going to be an epic poem. Some love stories are going to be a short story. Some are going to be a novella. Some are going to be a dirty limerick. And that's
Mhm.
okay. And every Liz, like you were saying, as you know, they've been together for 20 years. They are growing, they are changing. And one of the things that happens when you are growing and when you are changing is that who you are growing into is someone for whom this relationship is not going to be a good fit. You are growing apart not because that you did anything wrong, but simply because this is just this is starting to be the part of your life where you are now a different person and your life has changed and you are growing apart. And that doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It doesn't mean that they did anything wrong. It doesn't mean that there's anything to be fixed because sometimes there's nothing to be fixed. It's just life. And it's sad when this happens because we would all, when we're in love, we would always like that love to last forever and to never change.
Yeah.
But sometimes it happens. It really, really sucks, but it's just life and it's hard to accept. But you can't fight it forever. Sometimes you only hurt yourself trying, and she's hurting herself. That's the thing that like really comes through is that she is hurting and doesn't seem to be willing to admit it
Yeah.
or not so cleanly to the level because like I feel like I feel like it hurts more than she's letting herself accept or believe, and it's squeaking out in little ways.
Yeah.
And it's one of those like maybe the best thing you can do right now is separate because you crave his touch and his touch alone. You are not getting it. And he doesn't seem to be recognizing that. And
And she
maybe,
says, I miss being the one and only one.
yeah,
That is not something he wants to offer you right now.
yeah, it sucks, but maybe they need to separate, and there's nothing saying that while they're apart, they can't come back together later, presuming that that's going to happen organically and not that like this is I'm doing this with the understanding that in 5 years we're going to circle back around, and so I'll be living in just keeping a loop going until it's time. I'm going to be putting my life in stasis until you come back. It's like, no, you got to be willing to let them fly the nest under the assumption that they may not come back and just hope that they do. And that's a hard thing to do. That's a leap of faith that's very hard to ask, but sometimes it's all you've got.
I think a fair question to run through if you're thinking about stuff like this, a situation like this, is like, how willing are you to accept reality? Because it's an acknowledgement and an acceptance of what's actually happening. And I see this a lot in couples therapy. People will come in and, you've invested, right? So there's
Yeah.
10 years, 20 years. Maybe you have a home together, you have animals together, you've got all of these memories. And this person was happy for all intents and purposes. They were not, I don't hear anything like we were having trouble or anything like that. This person sort of has what they wanted, and it was what they wanted. And now it's changing. And I hear this person very much sort of not accepting the reality of the situation. And I see that a lot in couples therapy. There are real compatibility mismatches in couples over time, especially if they got married really young, or we met in high school, or we dated in college, and you realize they never really dated out. They didn't really have any sexual experience. And now all of a sudden, you want to have sexual experience, and okay, so I want to be cool about it, but I don't feel cool about it. And the reality is sometimes I'll look at couples and be like, knowing what you know now, knowing that this person now is identifying as bi, is identifying as queer, is wanting to have these expansive relationship experiences for the first time in their life, knowing that now, if you weren't married, would you spend any time with this person? And they look at me often and cry. They don't want to answer that question. They just want their partner to go back, or they want to be different so they can be okay, so that the reality does need to be accepted. And then maybe nothing has to change again, because change is scary. Change is terrifying. We'd rather be miserable than change.
Yeah.
I see it all the time. I would rather be miserable and be complaining about you in this situation than actually, I'll look at clients and go, you don't have to wait around for them to figure this out. You can cut yourself loose. And people are like, oh, I know. And then they're like waiting, because they don't want to change. Change is scary.
I've been doing a lot of work on learning ACT lately, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. And they talk so much about the ways that so much of our suffering often is driven by the ways that we are resisting reality rather than accepting it, that we're trying to force it to be something else, or think about why it shouldn't be this way, why it's not fair, like how can we force it to change, when really we have to just accept what reality is so that we can then start making choices about where we want to go from here, right?
Yes.
What is going to move us towards our values? What's going to move us towards the life we want to be living? And what I see in this post is not someone who's figuring out like even what the life she wants to be living is and how to move towards it. I see her trying to figure out, how do I not lose as much as possible? And I think when you're coming from that space, you're just going to keep agreeing to things that you aren't actually okay to agree to, because you don't want to lose. And maybe you're not actually losing. Maybe it's just an acknowledgement that sometimes, like Harris said, not everything needs to last forever. Maybe I have a different perspective on this because someone I was dating died while we were dating when I was very much younger than most people who have had that experience. But like every relationship ends, whether because you break up or someone dies, right? Like every relationship is going to end. The sooner you get okay with relationships ending, the better the relationships you're in are going to be, because you're not going to keep the ones around that don't fit just because you don't want them to end. You're going to be able to say, oh, this isn't working. Is this something that's actually fixable, or are we just not a good fit? And you're able to come to it from a much more clear space than when what you're stuck in is like, oh my God, I don't want to lose it. I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose. I don't want to break up. Right. And I think particularly folks socialized as women carry a lot of shame around a relationship ending because we are taught that it is our job to keep relationships going no matter what. And so a lot of women who are facing a prospect of divorce feel like it would mean that they failed to keep that relationship going. They failed to make it work. They failed somehow as a partner to like keep his interest, to make him happy, whatever those assortment of things are. And like, what if you didn't fail anything? What if there is no failing here? What if nobody necessarily did anything wrong, right? What if sometimes the relationship just fails the both of you? It stops serving the needs for the both of you, and that is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a hard reality to accept. It really is. When I first learned about acceptance and commitment therapy, I thought, oh my God, that just sounds horrible. It sounds so accepted and commit, you know? And now I'm the biggest fan. Fuck
Huge
CBT.
fan.
All
Yeah.
about ACT. Like,
Right? Like,
they are showing you who they are. They are telling you very clearly, this is what I want. Can we
Yep.
we acknowledge and accept it? Can we acknowledge and accept how we feel about it? That's the first step. And that is like, people want to go around it, over it, underneath it. They don't want to do it.
well,
They're
but what if
just
he changes his mind? He might come back. You know, and I'm like, that's not what he showed. Like, based on the evidence we actually have, what are you seeing that tells you that's a possibility, right? Like, that's a lovely fantasy for you to hold. I get that that is a wish that you have. That wish is not based in reality. We need to acknowledge what is real. Can we just acknowledge what is real?
And I feel like there's an inverse of that too, of in accepting what is real means letting go of beliefs that you may have held on that are negative, that aren't real, that you have believed are true. And you need to accept that maybe you are
absolutely.
wrong and that
It's
you have been holding on to these for no reason or because they're incorrect, but you have held on for them for so long. And especially because if they tweak the negativity bias, that it's easier to believe the worst about yourself than it is to believe that you have potential, that you have been, holding yourself back or denying yourself things that you didn't need to, which is another thing that maybe she needs to do. She may be realizing she is denying herself her agency because she doesn't feel like she's allowed to have that agency, as she was saying about that wound about being a doormat. And yet here she is, maybe not being a doormat because she feels like she's chosen it, but maybe needing to tap into that pain and possibly even that rage if she has some, and say the way that I'm being treated does not feel fair, and I need to be able to accept that is, I am not being treated fairly, and I am allowed to respond.
Well, and also, like, maybe it's not that he wanted someone else because you aren't enough. Maybe that is not true. Maybe you were plenty and also he wants others, right? I see whenever I'm working with couples who bring up this thing of like, but why does he want more people? I'm often like, okay, so if you've had one kid, you should never want a second kid, right? Because why do you need another one? You already have one. Do you not love that kid? Is that kid not enough? Is that kid not worth loving? Is that why you need another one? So you can love that one more and replace it? No, same thing, right? Maybe not in your heart and your brain. Maybe the way your system is built, you have one person that you love romantically and you have no other desires to have others. That is not my life. My life is not at all like that. And the desire I feel for someone new has nothing to do with the worthiness or goodness of the people already in my life and everything to do with how I function. And that doesn't shut off for me when I'm connected to somebody. And I think that the negative beliefs I see from her here are that if I stand up for myself, something terrible is going to happen. If I can't get good with this, it must be a failing on my part, right? She's not treating this as something that could be she's doing everything right and it still will not work, right? What if you are not actually doing anything wrong aside from continuing to stay, right? Maybe the beliefs that you're holding about your inability to set boundaries, your inability to stand up for yourself, your inability to be a happy whole person if this ends in divorce. I remember when I was 26 years old and separating from my now ex-husband, and I was terrified no one would ever want to date me or sleep with me again because I'm a 26-year-old divorcee. How fucking sad is that? That's pathetic. Nobody's going to want me. And, you know, my ex had been making me feel real terrible about myself for a long time. So that also built on that. And what I found instead within the first week of us being separated was actually everybody wants a piece and I'm going to be just fine. And I think those negative beliefs we hold about I'm not good enough. I managed to land this one. If I let it go, I'm never going to get anything that's a better fit or even as good a fit. They are wrong almost 100% of the time.
1,000%. I was in a very toxic relationship. My first serious relationship was extremely toxic. And I stayed in it for as long as I did because I thought, A, this is how relationships are. And B, it was such a struggle getting into this one in the first place. This is the best I could do. And it took a lot, and I mean a lot, to finally leave that. But oh Lord, the day that I did was just like, the sun has colors I have never seen before. There are lights in the sky I have never known. Look at those clouds. Those clouds are amazing. It turned into a song by a band that I love, Cowboy Mouth, called This Much Fun, of I've never had this much fun in such a long, long time. And it's just like, yeah, sometimes even when you think this is the best you can do, even when you think this is the happiest you can be, and it's not that happy, sometimes maybe that change needs to happen so you can see that the thing that you need to accept and move forward with is that this isn't the end. This is the end of the beginning. And it's now just moving into the next act of your life, not, you know, the end of it. You're not moving into limbo. You're moving into the next act so you can and see what's going to happen next.
Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Yeah. I know who I want to take me home. Anyway. Kristen, any more thoughts on this one?
No, just I have a lot of compassion. It's more common than you would imagine.
And the one other thing I want to say is, like, I really wish she had said no to the guy moving in with them. Like, I really, really wish she had said no to that, because based on how she wrote about it, she was not a good yes to that. Again, I think she was like, I can be okay with this, rather than a yes. And I really wish people felt more empowered in their relationships to be clear with themselves and their partners about, like, what are you actually a good yes to? What are you I want to try this? What are you I'm willing to do this? What are you I don't want to do this? What are you a no? Because there's a wide gradation there that we often lump into either a yes or a no. And I think that we need to be clearer on that.
I just realized something, and to bring it back to a previous episode, she let Madeline move in with them.
Oh my God, she moved in Madeline. Oh my God, she did. Sorry, we did it. I don't know if you've heard the album, Kristen, that Lily Allen put out about her now ex-husbands forcing her into non-monogamy, essentially. Great album. You should listen to it. I'll send you a link. It's called West End Girl by Lily Allen, and it is glorious. But the name of one of the people that he's having a thing with is Madeline. And it's pretty clear that the thing that they're doing breaks a lot of the agreements that she and her husband had made. But yeah, Madeline moved in with them. And again, like, to be sympathetic from, like, her husband's point of view, right? If what he's getting from her is yeses that she doesn't really mean, but she says she does, and she has negotiated, it can be really hard to know for certain, especially if your partner is a fawn response kind of person. It can be really hard to know when they're fawning versus when they're giving you a genuine yes. Like, when are they selling you on how okay they are with things versus actually okay with it? And I think for him, the big tip I would give is, like, I think you need to be more cautious about how confident she is in giving a no, and, like, especially giving a no when it's something you really want. Because if you don't feel confident that if you really wanted something and she was actually a no, she would say no, you have to be real cautious about what you ask for. I think in these situations, a lot of times there's a lot of like trashing of the partner who's pushing the non-monogamy forward of like, well, they should know that you don't want these things. And sometimes they can tell and they do it anyways. But sometimes I have seen situations where people are really good at fawning and their partner genuinely is just taking them at their word and does not know that they need to be more cautious about whether that person can actually use their nose. And I think for him, like she said, like this is what he wants. He wants to have his two people together. That makes him really happy. And like if she's not telling him the fullness of how upset this is making her, it's really hard for him to make good choices. I think people in her situation, and I'm a recovering people pleaser myself, we try so hard not to say something that's going to make our partner upset or make them think we don't want them to do things. And so we like try to just swallow it ourselves and find some way to digest it, when really it's better to tell them, because then they can make choices with all the information, right? And you can let them know, like if I was in a situation, not exactly like this one, but like similar, I might say like, look, this is very important to you and I care about you, so I want to help facilitate things that are important to you. I am struggling with a lot of challenging feelings around it. I'm going to try to deal with those feelings, and I genuinely do not know in a long-term way how realistic it is for me to be able to stay in this. I am not saying that to say you should break up with this person. I'm not saying that as an ultimatum. I am letting you know that like this is very, very hard for me. I want to try to work on it, and I cannot promise that I will ever get to a place where this feels good for me. What I want you to know is that like I was very happy with us being monogamous. I'm happy to try this. And if we get to a point where for you, the only way to do things is polyamory, we need to have a serious conversation about that. Because again, I don't know that I can practice polyamory forever. I don't know that that's something I can promise you. And I want us to both be clear about that, not because I'm trying to change you and what you're doing, but because I want you to have information when you make choices.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it sometimes it really is a case of there isn't a good or bad guy in the situation. Sometimes it really, because I know that like people are gonna be like, well, you know, you're being so nice to her, but you were harsh on the other guy. It's like there's no bad guy here. It sounds like her husband has been on the up and up about everything. It doesn't sound like he's been pushing for things that, you know, he has no right to ask for, and it doesn't sound like he's been pushing her boundaries. It just sounds like things are not working, and that's different. It does sound like she's not getting the balance that she needs, but it also sounds like she's not asking for it. It sounds like they're like really she's trying to be okay with something, like you were saying, that she's not okay with. And maybe that's what she needs to be able to get okay with, is being not okay with things so that she can actually express it.
Well, and a situation like this highlights, right? There's always power in a relationship. There's always, you know, someone on a front foot or someone on a back foot. And if the power dynamic has always sort of been in this way, when they say, oh, we communicate, it could very well be that he's like telling her, like, hey, by the way, this is happening. And she's like, oh, great, thanks for telling me. Right. And so a situation like this where a person is not used to having power, not used to having agency, 20 years of a marriage in a certain particular shape of a relationship, you know, telling someone like that, you need to get on your own team or whatever, that is like foreign fucking language. I like the language of like, what opportunities are you think are rising in this for you right now? Like he's obviously doing what he's doing, independent of him. You're in this situation right now. What are you called to do? And if she goes, well, I just need to figure out how to make this work. Like I'm not going anywhere. Like she said she hated it, and she could be in like miles deep of denial, but like as a therapist, we don't challenge someone's denial. Like I'm going to meet that person right there. They're like, and I am not getting divorced. Do not tell me. It doesn't sound like this is compatible. You should think about leaving them. I'm going to lose that client like right away. Right. So just getting super curious about that, you know, and if a person like that says, you know, like, I don't even know, like, I'm not really sure it, you know, that it's such a learning curve to be thrown off a cliff like that, you know, and it does actually feel like being thrown off a cliff. It's a whole different land. And so again, there's going to be all these mechanisms to reach for what do I need to do to, in order to keep the connection and not cause major change. I don't understand because I didn't want it to begin with. I don't want to talk about what magic awaits me on the other side of non-monogamy. Fuck that, right? Like, what is
Right.
what is actually inviting to this person?
Yeah.
It might be a long journey, a very, very long journey. And it might be that they stay in this marriage for a number of years. You know, who knows?
I
I
also
have
want to challenge, she says at the end, like, I am not giving up this easily. And like, girl, in what way would that be given up easily? In
Yeah,
what
that
way?
none of this has been easy.
You let a dude move in with you for 2 months already. That is not giving up easily. I don't, what for you? I ask this a lot of like the patients and the clients I see of like, but where are your actual lines? Where are the things where you cannot go beyond this? That if this thing happens, it is too much for you, cannot go any farther. And like some of those are obvious for a lot of people of like, well, if someone puts their hands on me in a way that's not clearly negotiated in a kink context, that's absolutely a line, right? If they cheat on me. And yet a lot of people, but when they get into a relationship would say, if they cheat on me, that's a line, and then their partner cheats and they reevaluate, is that actually a line? Right. And I think looking at like, what are the lines that you draw? Why do you draw them? Why do you redraw them when you hit them? Because it sounds like for her, she's hit a lot of her lines and redrawn them. And I would want to understand, like, what's leading to redrawing these lines versus holding them? How do you make those choices? Because are we making them from a place of fear? Are we making them from a place of openness and curiosity? Are we making them from a place of desire? Are we making them from a place of recognizing new things about yourself or this relationship? But like, what is it that's leading to the redrawing of these boundaries? Because if it's mainly fear and trying not to lose him, that's not going to go well. You're just going to get further and further into a zone that is not okay with you.
Yeah.
Anything else on this one, everybody?
I think we solved it rather thoroughly. So he just needs to call us and be like, all right, here you go, problem solved. Ready to move on.
I mean, again, I have so much sympathy for everybody in this situation, right? I have sympathy as well for like the dude that the husband's hooking up with, because for him, he has to feel a ton of precarity in this situation, right?
Yeah.
She's the legally married spouse. If she calls the question of like, actually, I don't think I can do this anymore, is he actually going to choose to stay married and be monogamous? Is he going to choose non-monogamy, right? And so for the other guy, he's in a very disempowered position in this situation, living in a house that is not his with someone who does not want to be his friend, does not like the relationship he has with her husband, right? Like, it's a tough situation to be in. And again, the husband, tough situation to be in. Your partner is saying yes, but you can tell they're uncomfortable. How do you manage that when you're joyously happy with everything that's happening, right? Everybody in this is suffering in some way. And I think it's a question of, again, reassessing where are my actual boundaries and am I holding them?
And let's wrap that up with a reminder of what a boundary is.
So boundaries about your own self. You cannot have boundaries about other people. You cannot say, my boundary is you can't post pictures on the internet. No. Your boundary might be, I don't date people who have a sexualized internet presence. That might be your boundary, right? But like, your boundary is about your own body, your own behavior, your own choices. Agreements made by 2 or more people, changeable by any of the people involved in the agreement. So everyone involved gets a seat at the negotiating table. They may not get 100% of their way, but they all get a say. Rules decided by 2 or more people affect people who don't get a say. So like, Kristen and I decide that Harris, as our third, doesn't get to have sex with anybody else, and we get to have sex with whoever we want.
Yep. And the key part is boundaries are something you enforce yourself. It requires zero action on the other person. So when people say they violate my boundaries, I go,
then remove yourself.
Didn't enforce your own boundaries. But I think
boundaries are as strong as you're willing to enforce them. If you don't enforce them, they're not boundaries. They're strongly worded suggestions.
That's right. Absolutely. So yes.
And it does suck that in some ways, the only way to enforce a boundary that someone is not willing to like first step enforcing a boundary is just informing someone of it. Like, hey, I'm not okay with you doing this. Can we do something else? Right. Second step is like, hey, if you keep doing this, that's not going to be okay with me. I may need to remove myself. And then third step is actually like removing yourself. And it does suck that sometimes the only way for you to hold your own boundaries is to remove yourself from a relationship or a connection of some kind. But like that's what it is, right? Anything else gets into that realm again of reinforcing coercion and control. They're like, I've told you my boundary, it's your job to meet it. I mean, yes, but also no, not at all. Like, we can't control other people's actions. We cannot dictate for other people how they get to move through the world. We only get to dictate when they get to continue to have access to us. And if they treat us in a way we don't appreciate, we can remove that access.
It's very hard though in this culture, with especially like women are conditioned that not to stand for and have boundaries for oneself. And it really, I see this a lot where I see women very clearly unhappy in a non-compatible relationship, but they're not going to be the one that fucking leaves. They are not. They will wait and wait and wait and wait, and they will not choose themselves. And because I'll say to people, you know, like, I would like to see you mutually decide to end this relationship in a respectful kind of way, but it only takes one person to end it.
Yeah.
And I often see one person sort of dragging their feet because it's so anticlimactic to say, yeah, we went to couples therapy for 6 months and, you know, and then we decided to part. There's, you know, it doesn't make for a lot of juice. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot. People get a lot more attention with like, they left me, like they wouldn't respect my boundaries and they left me. You know, it's like, no, they didn't.
Right.
Like it was an incompatible relationship, and that's okay. Like, it's okay. However, we again, context. It's huge social red letter for a woman, especially a straight woman, to have a failed marriage. You got to check the fucking divorce box, right? Like, it's a whole thing. It carries a lot of stigma and a lot of shame. And when your wedding was the coming of age ritual of your life, it was the one ritual you got, and now you're gonna walk away from that marriage, like somebody fucked it up, right? Like, we're not into, in this culture, yeah, we evolved away, we consciously uncoupled, we make fun of people like that, you know, like, yeah, it wasn't drama, we fucking sat down, it was very painful, and we decided to let each other go because we really love one another. It doesn't make for good TV or social media posts.
Well, and like, especially, you know, the rightward push under fascism, with like a lot of them talking about trying to eliminate no fault divorce, and like they want it to be impossible to get divorced unless you can prove your partner was cheating or beat you. And like, I think there's also, and I think that mirrors a message that a lot of us get, that like, unless your spouse is doing something heinous, you should keep trying to make it work for as long as it takes.
Yes, you need
And
a
like,
you need a casus belli in
don't.
order to finally initiate the breakup.
Please don't. Like, please don't. That doesn't make people happy. And I see a lot of patients come in and like, well, but what about our kids? And I'm like, well, research shows actually kids do better in divorce households than highly conflictual ones. So if you two aren't getting along, it's actually better to divorce. That's better for the kids. But it is, and I think that to a large extent, it is more of a fear of stigma than an actual stigma, right? Like, the actual stigma I experienced for being a 26-year-old divorced woman, way smaller than the stigma I feared I would experience. And there may be some bias to that in terms of like, I was involved in, again, like Ren Fair, Dickens Fair communities. I was with a bunch of weirdos, but like, lots of people are divorced. There isn't as much of a huge actual stigma, especially if you aren't like 4 divorces deep, you know? I think that we perceive there being a much greater stigma than there really is when you get down to it.
Yeah.
So true about many things, up to and including openly being ethically non-monogamous.
True. Well, this was so much fun. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for spending some time. It was lovely to see you again, and it was lovely to meet you, Harris. And Juno says hello.
Hello, pupper.
Tiny little puppy.
She's 2, actually. So she's just a 4-pound monster. She's just a small monster.
All dogs are puppies. They die puppies. They're all puppies. And so, Kristen, if people wanted to get the non-monogamy card game, like I have right here, where can they get it?
just go to the non-monogamycardgame.com. That's our Shopify store, and just click and buy. And please also join us on our Instagram page at the same name, the Non-Monogamy Card Game, where we do our best to create heartfelt content about all things relationship wise. And thank you so much for inviting me to your program today. It was fun.
Yeah. Harris, where can people find you?
Well, people can find me at drnerdlove.com. If you've got dating advice questions and want some answers, you can send them in through the contact form at drnerdlove.com/contact. And of course, you can, if you really like what you hear on or read on the site, you can support me at Patreon at, you guessed it, patreon.com/drnerdlove. And that's the DR Nerd Love is also my handle on all the socials, mostly on Blue Sky. But Dr. Liz, where can people find you?
So my website is drlizpowell.com. That's drlizpowell.com. You can find my courses, my book, and cute merch like this shirt that says Kinkster are all on that website. On the socials, I am at Dr. Liz Powell everywhere. Mostly I am on Blue Sky. If you're trying to talk to me on Instagram, you're probably talking to my assistant, Allie, who also edits this podcast and is amazing, and we love her so much. Thank you, Allie, for everything you do. We love you. But yes, I am at Dr. Liz Powell on all the social medias. You can also, if you love hearing my voice, or if you hate hearing my voice and you think I'm a blue-haired monster, show me how much you hate me by subscribing to my Patreon. The higher the dollar amount, the more the hate I will feel. Patreon.com/Dr. Liz.
And we are going to leave it there, but as we say every week, do as we say,
not as they did.